You're tuned in to Career Currency with Kareem Perez, a podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. Here's your host, Kareem Perez.
All right, yo, welcome. We're here for another episode of the Career Currency Podcast. I'm your host, Kareem Perez, and this podcast is all about unlocking your potential, increasing your professional value, and really just around conversations about currency, about communication, about how you can increase your professional value, how you can learn new skills, and how you can take the next level in your career. And today we have Karlena Waugh, okay, very special guest, one of my favorite people to collaborate with. And by day, she's a coordinator for the event experience team at MLSE. So a lot of big things for all you sports heads out there. We're going to be talking about that. She works in global partnerships, VIP and lifestyle events for, the Raptors, the Leafs, all those big teams. By night, she's a millennial entrepreneur, passionate about community building. I've seen you build an amazing community, so I'm a huge fan. Background in resident life, student affairs, and community building. And she utilizes her skills to effortlessly build rapport with clients and create a sense of community and just nurture strong business relationships. She also creates spaces for entrepreneurs. So all you entrepreneurs out there who are looking for, just information, connections, and she helps to showcase their business. She works with a lot of women entrepreneurs as well. And she just built an amazing community called the Biz Mixer. So Karlena, what's up?
I'm good.
Welcome to Career Currency.
Thank you for the warm welcome.
And actually the last thing is your life's mantra, okay, which I really like. We're not awarded opportunities, we make decisions to create them.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
so let's just break that down. Let's start there. Where do you get that mantra from, and why do you how do you live by it?
That is literally my whole career journey is
Okay.
Starting at a very unlikely beginning to getting into the event industry and just making that decision to create an opportunity. Like when I think about the initiative with the Biz Mixer, it was because I didn't have a community as a first-time entrepreneur coming out of an industry that there was some relatable skills, but I didn't go to school for event management, and that's what I felt passionate about doing when I started my first business. So when you don't have a name in the industry and no one knows who you are and you don't have a background in it and you've just kind of been doing it through other roles, you have to create that own opportunity for yourself. When you start out, you have to be able to show that you can do the work. So how do you do that? You kind of have to create your own portfolio. You have to create an opportunity so you can show it. And I mean, outside of creating that community with the Biz Mixer, it's also been my living portfolio of me being able to execute on what I say that I can do and what's on my resume.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's dope. And I know, we're gonna have a nice, really, really good conversation today. But break it down for me. I know you have experience working with students. And what did you study in school? Right. So how did that start? What was your university or school journey like?
Yeah, so I went to the University of Waterloo, and I majored in biology and family studies. So that degree on the wall, I guess, I don't know. My parents are proud of me, but they're probably like, "What the heck?"
So
does
that your decision, or was that theirs, or like?
I wanted to actually become a genetic counselor. So working with working with parents to figure out what their genetic DNA would be and what their kids might be predisposed to.
Oh, interesting.
So I wanted to combine therapy and working with families with science and biology to make an impact that way. So that was my initial thought going into school, which is why I went to Waterloo, because they have a really great co-op and science program there. But of course, as you go along, you do your internships. I had the opportunity to go overseas to do some work in a biology lab, and I realized that I didn't want to sit around and just look at samples.
Okay, where'd you go?
I went to Jamaica.
Oh, nice.
To Northern Caribbean University. I was there for about 6 months. And it was pretty much getting samples, putting them in, and sitting. And the guy was like, "I'm so glad that you're going to be here and working with me." And that I was supposed to be there for 4 months. And I was like, yeah, after 6 weeks, I'm like, I think I'm going to go back home because I don't really want to do this for the rest of my life. And I came back and I went into my advisor's office and literally was in tears. I'm like, I feel like my whole, because at that point I have done 4 years in biology.
Okay.
So I'm getting ready to graduate. I was supposed to graduate.
That's the end. Wow. Okay.
And I was like, I don't think I want to be in this industry. And it's like, but I also don't know, like, what's next for me. Wow, that's
interesting, yeah.
Thankfully, there was an opportunity to have a major and minor, so I took a lot of courses in different disciplines, which is what I would recommend to a lot of students. If you're majoring in one discipline, try to, taste from other departments, try to take other classes that maybe just seem completely random. Like I took a course in sexuality, a course in like the history of rock and music, and it just so happened that I stumbled upon a class that I really enjoyed and discovered a whole degree that I could kind of be a part of. So I switched my program in my 4A semester, so that would be like my first semester, my fourth year, and ended up having to stay an extra year to get it done and work through the summer. But by the end of it, I was super proud of what I was able to accomplish, and there was actually a lot of similarities between the biology of humans and human development from a psychological perspective.
Right, yeah.
So I was able to see how behavior, community, relationships kind of related to how we're built and our makeup as biology and anatomy. There's a lot of similarities between science and the mind. So it actually helped me a lot in my career and going through those therapy classes, learning about mediation, learning how to build rapport really quickly if you're having clients. Yeah. All of those things are skills that I use right now, like being able to mediate, being able to talk to people, have people feel comfortable sharing, sometimes maybe too much sometimes.
Yeah, TMI.
But having that skill set and that practice at the beginning of my career really helped. And just being able to just taste, like in our program, it was very interdisciplinary. So I did a lot with youth. My first job was a tour guide in residence. And it was, at first just to pay for all of the club nights out and all of the takeout that I wanted to buy that I didn't want to ask my parents money for. But then it was a way of me stumbling upon a whole career. So let's talk about that, right? And actually, maybe let's just stop on the idea of it's okay to change. Yeah.
Right? Because I know that's a big thing.
It's huge.
When you're deciding, you think like this is going to be your pathway forever. And then if you're stuck in it, whether it's year 2 or year 3 or year 4, if it's just not right for you or you have to make that decision, that's okay.
Yeah.
But what are, I guess, like just to think about that moment, because it was obviously nerve wracking, like you're overseas, your parents are expecting you to graduate. There's a lot of social pressure.
Yeah.
So how did you make that decision? And like, what was your breaking point where it's like, okay, forget the social pressure. I can't keep this anymore. Like I have to make this decision,
make the change. Yeah, I kind of built a case for it. So when I looked at my grades from my science courses, I was making enough in those classes to stay on the honor roll. But when I looked at the work that I was doing through my therapy part of my degree, it was like 2 different students. And that was like the self-awareness point to be like, I'm doing really well in these courses and these disciplines because I feel really passionate about what I'm doing and I'm really involved in it and I'm wanting to read the 20-page articles and do all of those things. Like I was excited about that, and I felt like having that comparison really helped me become aware of what I was really meant to do. And that's kind of how I was able to kind of sell the idea of like, so yeah, my minor, like, so those like sexuality, family studies courses that I'm doing, I'm actually getting like 80s and 90s. So in order for me to stay on the honor roll, I need to switch my degree.
Yeah,
and just having a plan too. So at that point, I was doing a placement in a neighboring city, and I was able to save from a very tangible perspective of I can make a career out of this. I've researched it. So I think that's important too, is when you're thinking about making that transition or making that leap to change your path, really take the time to learn what that industry is, what opportunities are out there, how can you kind of reverse engineer getting into certain roles, and just really taking the time to do that was how I was able to not only sell it to myself, but sell it to my parents at the time who were paying for me to go to university. So that's how I kind of did it. And then just really taking a commitment to volunteering and doing those outside classroom learning. So I made a pact with myself that every term I had to do at least one volunteer opportunity. So whether that was having big brother, big sister, or I would work with after school programs, I made it a point of duty to, whether it was on campus or outside of campus or within the community, I was volunteering and spending my time to not only learn, but I didn't realize it then, I was networking. I didn't realize I was doing it, but it was just me trying to navigate through that new career that I was looking to pursue. And with that, I even learned I didn't want to be in therapy. I thought I wanted to do my master's in therapy by my 4th year, and I realized I actually don't want to do that either. So I would say my whole career in that 5 years, I think I switched majors maybe 3 times within the science department, and then I switched degrees, and I didn't even like use my biology or my therapy degree at all. So it was
not directly. Okay. So you made your decision, you made your change, and now you're your first job now. So you're starting to get into the student
life. Yeah. So it happened as a student staff. So as I mentioned, I started in tour guiding, then I worked with first year. So like working with first year students during orientation week. And then I worked front desk. From that, I worked in a role called Dons. We were Dons, so residence life advisors. And that was the part where I actually met my first mentor Brian, who like I forever will shout him out. And he's like, I was just helping you become who you were. But that was my first experience, having a really great mentor that saw the skills that I had and exposed me to opportunities to help me realize what that next part of the journey was. So through that experience, we had a yearly conference that was all across North America. So anyone that was in student life support or in that role, they would come together every year, and it was a conference that all of these students would come to learn about leadership, learn about how they can better serve students and be in the industry. And a piece of that was most of the presentations were student led. So you would actually have to submit a proposal to speak. And of course, I'm like, I don't want to speak. Like at that point, I hated speaking. So even the fact that I speak so much now is like, Karlena like 10 years ago, like never wanted to be in front of any classroom or anything. So he really pushed me to send in a proposal. And at the time, the proposal was about self-care and balance and mental health. And I ended up being accepted, got to go to the conference and present. I was nerve-wracked. I literally probably had like belly run the whole time. But being there and having that experience of sharing what I was learning as a student leader also exposed me to the fact that I could do this as a long-term goal. I could be a professional that worked with students for pretty much the rest of my life, because there's a university or a college in every single city. Right. There's a lot of work out there. So that was my start. Started at Sheridan, was there for 3 years, and learned a lot about building community, the operations, actually the business of bringing people together. And that, I think, kind of sparked everything that I do right now and kind of moving into the events industry. Okay,
so I want to talk about 2 things. The first one, or the main thing, is the mentorship part, right? And I would just want to like get into some of the skills or some of the things you learned as a result of your mentor pushing you into areas that you might not have gone into. And I want you to layer on the volunteering with that, because you mentioned volunteering, and that's like obviously a good way to experience new things. So what are some of the like top skills you learned being pushed out of your comfort zone by your mentor, and what would you say for just students that are doing it themselves and they don't have a mentor? Should they find one? Do you think it's like a good idea?
Yeah, I think one of the main skills I learned was the communication and really executing. Those are the 2 things that I learned, and the importance of relationships. So I'd say those 3, like executing, building relationships, and communication skills. Because when you're living with 50 students and you have to try and get them to come out to events and be a part of this community setting, you have to learn negotiation, how to communicate, how to get people to buy into an idea or what you're trying to execute on. And then from the perspective of working with your mentor or your managers, they're expecting you to execute on a plan. So for us, we had learning pillars that we had to accomplish every single semester. So you had to not only plan and say you're going to do something, you had to be able to execute on that as well. And then with the relationship building was really building relationships with community partners. So whether that was doing puppy rooms for exams, like you had yoga? Puppy well, not puppy yoga at the time, that wasn't trending back, and I'm probably aging myself, but you had to learn how to have conversations and how to get people to buy into an idea. And I think that's something that across industries is an important skill to learn how to explain your vision or what you're looking to accomplish in a way that people understand, but also that they can buy into it and see that you're confident in executing on it. So I would say those are some skills. Definitely would recommend even volunteering in an industry you're interested in, because there's so much that you'll learn by way of skill set. Whether you want to do it or not, you'll learn both sides of the coin by volunteering your time. And that comes into the relationships. You'll meet people that could potentially change your career or expose you or let you know about opportunities that you might not have crossed paths with if you didn't. So would definitely recommend volunteering. That was kind of my start and how I was able to become successful.
Okay. So at this point, right? So when you went through that experience, like, what did you consider yourself at that point? You consider yourself like a event planner, a community builder? Like, I know things are always evolving, right? But when you started building community, like, what was it? You said you're looking for a community.
I was looking for community, but I think at the time, community wasn't a buzzword, really. It was
But
just
did you consider yourself like an entrepreneur where you were like,
No,
I'm going to
no.
start a business
No,
that does this?
No. And I say that because my parents owned multiple businesses and I lived through what that life was. And I was like, I don't think I ever want to start my own business. I don't think I want to be an entrepreneur. Seems really hard and stressful. Don't think I want to do it. So my initial thing was to be a part of a company that allowed me to create experiences. So I would say I'm more so someone that's dedicated to curating experiences and bringing people together. So whatever title you want to use for that, but I think that would be my value system, is just creating spaces for people to learn and grow and to connect with one another. So whether that's community builder, whether that's event producer, whatever that title is, I think at the core of it, it's about experience. And even the work that I do now, it's event experience, but we really focus on the experience that we create for whether it's fans or coworkers or whatnot.
All right. So I want to talk about like, what are the cool things, right? Like when you talk about experience, right? And bringing people together and creating a mood or creating a moment. What are some of the things that are trending? What are some things that work? Like, what do you find that are the things that bring people together and get them to come back to multiple events, right? Yeah. Like, because one-off is, people always going to be like, yeah, I'm going to come to your first thing to support you. But, you know, there's drop-off over time. So how do you keep them excited about future events too? Yeah.
I think I draw a lot from that psychological part of my journey, is really focusing on the emotion and the feeling that you create. So I know like everyone knows a quote, like people won't remember what you did. They'll remember how you made them feel. But it's true. People remember how they felt. They remember the feeling. So whether that's, the music was popping or the food was good or I met someone that was really dope, they're going to remember the feeling that they had. Right. And that in some ways can be, I don't want to use the word addictive, but like that's what keeps people coming back to things, is the feeling. Like when we think about sports, for example, being in the arena, like there's such a difference between watching a game from your TV at home with your family and being in an arena and feeling that energy. Like there's nowhere else that you can feel the energy of a concert, the energy of a sporting venue. Like it's really hard to replicate that energy. So I think that's what people are drawn to. So if you can create an experience where whatever emotion you're trying to get across, so whether you want people to really think, be really reflective, you want people to be really excited, if you want people to feel like they're a part of something bigger or they're making an impact, whatever that emotion or feeling is, that is your compass. It has to be something where they feel like they can't get that same feeling somewhere else, and that's what keeps them coming back.
So what are some of the things that you've done in the virtual event space? I know you had like some matchmaking stuff. That was like a big, I know that was a big hit. I know that was a big hit. I know that was a big hit. And actually, from just observing the industry and being a fan and like looking for ideas, I was like, yeah, that's a really cool idea when I saw it. So what are some of the other things that work? Like having music, having artists, like what are some of the things that you...
When I think about curating or creating an event, I think about how many senses can you involve. So that's why you're always going to come to the event. There's always going to be food. There's always going to be music. Right. There's always going to be multiple ways that people's senses can be engaged. So if you can get people to be engaged in multiple ways in the same space, it's like a stimulator. And like all of this sounds so messed up. Like it's probably the marketing side of it, like the psychological draw, but that's what makes people have that je ne sais quoi. Like, I don't know what about this event, but there's so many senses that you're engaging, and that's what keeps people coming back. Like, when you think about the trends of like all these Instagram pop-ups, like the Happy Places and the Dr. Seuss experience, and how every event now has some type of photo op, Instagram op.
True.
It's like, it's bright colors, music, being able to take a photo, you're going with your friends, there's food, like there's a lot of senses that they're engaging, and it's almost sensory overload in some cases, but that's their way of kind of instilling that feeling of, I want to come back, or I want to experience that too. So when I see a friend do that and they're like, yo, it was so fun, there was this and this, they're going to be those brand ambassadors because you've engaged them in so many different ways. So when you're thinking about your experiences that you're creating, it's like, how many ways can you get people engaged in that space?
Okay, and then what about, that's good. That's good. I was gonna go through the 5 senses, but I feel like that's kind of a little bit obvious. But what about the pregame and the postgame? So it's like you have this event, right? And you have all the 5 senses in mind, and you have like this cool experience that you're, on the day of. But leading up to the event, what type of engagement is there? What type of prep work is there? And maybe start that off with, how much time should you leave before starting to promote an event and actually having it?
And I think there's a difference between the promotion run and the planning run, because like people think that the planning and the promotion are the same thing, but they're really not. Like, first of all, you have to think about what the concept is, coming up with the idea, and then being able to pitch that to like your stakeholders or the talent that's going to be involved, because you have to have those in place before you can start promoting. So I think people are like, I'll promote this event and then figure out all the other pieces after. I'm like, you're setting yourself up for failure. I think just really considering what is the experience that you want to create, who are the people that are not only going to show up and really provide a lot of value for the people that are attending, but people that you can really collaborate with, especially if you're starting out, when like you may not have a big name and people may not have been to an event that you've experienced. You have to have people on the roster that believe in what you're putting on, that are gonna go to bat for it as well and be those brand ambassadors too. So really thinking about promotion not as something where it's just your platform that's promoting it and you're gonna run a couple ads. Okay, no one knows who you are, so and people are gonna show up to something if there's someone that they know or someone that they trust already that can vouch for it. And it goes back to like the cosign. So just really being intentional about who you choose in your first run, or thinking about who really resonates in that industry, like who is a thought leader that can kind of draw that audience to your event. But my thing has always been from the beginning, I'm going to work with people who believe in the vision of what we're doing and the initiative, that are going to promote it and kind of go to bat with it. I've had events where like people that are on the speaker roster are like running ads on the event and like promoting it even harder than how we are, and that really comes down to someone really buying into the vision behind what you're doing, which is what you need. And that's why with every event experience, there's always an influencer night. There's always something where they're getting those people that already have built-in audiences to basically co-sign on what they're doing, because they know that's way more powerful than spending a bunch of money on ad dollars. And like, no shade to like you and your marketing agency and the ad dollars. Still spend the ad dollar money, but know that the better, I guess, route of getting people engaged in what you're doing is having those ambassadors that can speak to it with confidence and can kind of bring their audience and rope their audience into what you're doing. So find the key players, find the gatekeepers, get them to buy into the idea, and then get them to kind of push it up.
Okay, so that's good. And then on average, this planning stage, in your mind, how long is that happening before the event? 6 months?
It depends on how large the event is, and I know like you don't want to hear it depends.
No, let's go 100-person small. Is that small?
It depends who you're talking to.
Let's go 50. Let's go 50. Small networking.
Yeah.
But you wanna create an experience for people.
Yeah. Like I would give yourself 6 to 8 weeks is cool.
Okay.
If you're thinking sponsorship and partnerships, you're gonna want to extend that. Because you think about reaching out to a business or a corporation or whatnot. you also have to really know, like, what do their quarters look like? What's their financial spend look like? When do they usually spend money? Are you at the end of the cycle where they're like, we have no money left? Are you at the beginning of the cycle?
Right.
So if you're looking to really have the brand partnerships and the sponsorships in place, like, you have to give time for that, especially at a business to business communication. That takes a lot longer. There's a lot more red tape. People have to sign off on things. There's a lot more meetings that have to happen. So I would say if you have an idea today and you don't think you're going to do the event for the next 6 months, it's never too early to start. I mean, you can do events with a shorter time frame, but you're going to be stressed.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
give yourself the space for that, because there's always things that you're going to run into, issues that you're going to run into. Maybe you're not able to gather in a certain way, as we've all learned over the past few years.
Right.
So there's always going to have to be a plan B, C, plan Z.
Okay, so and then what about like the promotional part, which is, say, for example, how long would you recommend to market and promote your event? But I wanted to really ask you about, can you promote it too early, right? Whereas, like, okay, if you start promoting it and people are like, oh yeah, that's like 2 months from now, so they're not really like, what's the best window of like when people actually register?
I've found it's usually that 4 to 6 week period where people feel like it's close enough that I kind of know what I'm doing in 4 to 6 weeks, but it's not too quick where it's like I already have plans.
Right.
So you want to give people, you know, like, and I always try to do those first, like, save the dates. People kind of like the rumbling, like they kind of know what's happening, and then they know, okay, now it's time to purchase kind of thing. And you kind of incentivize those people that are the diehards that as soon as you drop something, they're going to buy tickets. So I want to incentivize those people that will say, I care enough about this event or this experience that I'm going to be there regardless of what I'm doing. I'm going to shift my calendar to fit this. But most people are going to be on the other side where they're like, I'm going to fit your event into my calendar. So giving them enough notice that they can do that without it feeling like, oh, that's so far ahead. So I think there's value in save the dates. I think there's value in talking about the fact that you're going to do this event early in advance so people kind of have it in their subconscious, and then just really hitting the road running with that blatant, like, the event's happening, you need to buy, you need to be there kind of thing within that time frame.
Okay. All right. So did you, a lot of good keys. I mean, I got way more questions event wise, but I mean, I got to hire you for that.
Yeah.
So did you learn this when you were building the Biz Mixer? These are all the lessons you learned.
Yeah, because I will talk to students or individuals reach out and we'll do coffee chats. They're like, oh yeah, so what school did you go to? I'm like, Waterloo, but nothing to do with events. Like, I have those conversations of I've never necessarily had the traditional pathway to getting into events. So a lot of it was like learning by doing. When I started the Biz Mixer, nobody knew who I was in the industry. Nobody knew anything about Biz Mixer. They were like, Biz Mixer what? Who's that? But I learned by doing. Like, I taught myself how to use event platforms. YouTube University, reaching out to other event planners that had more experience than me and kind of just asking questions and being willing to learn. And then just really paying attention to the data. Like, I am really huge on analytics, like, kind of nerdy. Like, after an event, I'm like, I'm excited to show you, like, the impact of your event from numbers and, like, data. But using that to influence your decisions. So I learned, okay, when I didn't put up an event, when did people actually start buying? Like, what was the portfolio or the profile of the people that were coming to my events? Like, what industries were they a part of? Maybe how much money did they make? Like, at what stage were they in their business? So really learning that individual's lifestyle, your community's lifestyle, and what they typically do, what they're interested in, what their pain points were, that really helped in kind of building the brand and building the community, because I just spent a lot of time getting to know who the people were, and the people that were most excited about what we're doing, like, those are the individuals that I want to replicate in the community.
Right. And okay, so let's talk about at that moment, because before you mentioned, again, the entrepreneurial thing, it wasn't really necessarily your route or your idea, but you were building it as a business. Yeah. So
did you... got a lot of flack for in the beginning.
Okay. Like, how, why?
I think there's sometimes this misconception that if you've never done it or you don't have all the accolades that you don't deserve to do it.
Okay.
So for me, going into the entrepreneur space at the time, it was 2017. I was like mid-20s. I had only had one professional job outside of university.
Right.
And I was going up against like the old heads essentially that have always done the networking events, business events. So like, who are you?
The gatekeepers?
The gatekeepers. Like, you literally, your business just started 6 months ago.
Right.
Why would anyone come to your event? And why would anyone pay money to be there? So there was that pushback in a lot of ways, or not being taken seriously, which is interesting because 4 years later now, it's like the same people that are like, so we'd like to collaborate, and like we're nominated for an award and all this stuff happening now. But I think it really spoke to the importance of you just believing in yourself and your capabilities. Like, I knew that I didn't necessarily know how I was going to make it work, but I trusted that I could execute on my vision and my ideas, and I would find people that cared about this event. And just managing my own expectations. Like, my first event, I wasn't saying like I'm going to have 100 people.
Right.
We had 20 people in like a Caribbean bar with like
Where
fried
was I?
wings.
Where was I?
I didn't know you then. I didn't know you then.
All right.
But yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. That's a good point, and like segue, because I want to talk about the type of relationships that you've built.
Yeah.
Right. So like when you say 20 people, if those are your 20 ride or dies, buy your tickets, show up for you, support you, that's like a lot of people, right? So talk about some of the relationships you've built like through those conversations. I know you've talked to a lot of people, interviewing different business owners. Any personal friends now, you're working with them, you're helping them grow their business. Any cool like stories or like standout relationships that come to mind?
Wow, there's a lot. There's a lot of people that have come to
events.
No, I would say the first person that comes to my mind is TK. So shout out to TK. But she was one of the first people that came to an event, and that even looking at trajectories within the community, realizing the starting point of careers and businesses and seeing the progression, that's what makes me keep going. Like the fact that at 6 months we did a little panel and she was on the panel with us and didn't, there was that apprehension of speaking, and then shortly after that she was doing sessions at the Natural Hair Show, and then now she's like been on TV.
Okay, and what does she do? Shout out.
She does hair. She does hair. She does my hair.
Okay, nice. Yeah, bless you.
So being able to see that growth within the community really helped with me kind of continuing to do it, because it can be very tiring to do monthly events, or like you're always finding the next thing that you can help teach your community. But yeah, I think about the TKs, I think about the Mafuzas, I think about the Kaifers, the Ryan Singhs. I think of all of those people that I met along the way that opened doors to other opportunities that I wouldn't have access to. And people that I met that I was able to collaborate with and be hired by, even myself, not only in the community, people hiring each other, but a lot of the work that I got was because I took the chance to start the initiative. And I had a reel, essentially. People be like, oh, you speak, you do events, show me what you've done. And just thinking about the content creation perspective as well. So even though I didn't have money to really run these events, I always made it a point of duty. If I'm going to spend money, I'm spending money on a photographer or someone to hold the iPhone, to do a live, or to do whatever. Because down the road, it was like, okay, show me your portfolio. So now I have, 12 events worth of photos to say I've done this event series, and it continues to go, and it generates money, and people come out to it. That's what people can buy into. They want to see the tangible portfolio. So that was just me creating an opportunity so that I could launch my business.
Yeah, that's impressive. Like, I became a fan of your events, and that's how I found out about you. And, when we did our event, you're the first person I called just because of seeing your track record. But something that I also admire about you is putting people on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so just breaking down doors and access and opportunity are two things that we've had multiple conversations about. And, we're very passionate about that here at the Tech Effect. But yeah, talk about that, like the feeling that you get in being able to help somebody's business grow or help them get opportunities through your network and things like that.
I think it comes back to what we talk about a lot about sending the elevator back down. For me, I have mentors in the industry that you know, when they were doing events, they were like, listen, you can come and volunteer and just be a part of the experience and network, do whatever you need to do to build your own business. And that mentorship piece was there. And I saw how much it helped my own business, is people putting me on and giving me the opportunity to be like, yo, I know that you haven't done any events, but like, come, volunteer, do the thing, and then add it to your portfolio. Like, having other event producers that saw that spark in me and were willing to give me an opportunity to have something to add to my track record, that made the difference. So for me, it's been a personal goal to continue to create opportunities that way as well. So if someone asks me for a recommendation, it has to be someone from the BizFam, hands down. It's always going to be that. And even now working in the corporate event side, it's a personal goal that I have that I've been very honest and open about with my team and my managers, that my goal, not only my role here, is to create great experiences, but I also want to be able to bring my community into what we're doing here at this company and kind of help other businesses grow and have that experience and exposure to a different side of the industry that they may not have ever had access to. And funny enough, the BizMixer was actually probably the reason why I got the role anyway, because the panel is like, oh, so the BizMixer and everything you've been working on, like, tell us more about that.
Right. Yeah, so I wanted you to break that down in terms of talk about MLSE, right? Like what you're doing there now.
Yeah.
And how much those skills that you learned through the BizMixer and everything you built were leveraged or recognized by MLSE when you were going through that interview process and recruitment process.
I think the community aspect, so having a built-in audience and community that I'm frequently engaged with and pouring into, and that was basically the track record of long-term executing on what I said I was going to do.
Right.
Community is a commitment, right? So it wasn't something where it's like, oh, I did it once and never did it again. It's like, there's a track record that you not only did it once, twice, you've done it like 45 times now over the past 4 years, and you're committed to that. And there's an audience there that continues to come back. It's continued to grow. And it's just really being a student of the industry. That was one thing that came up in my interview process, and which was a long process. It was about 2 to 3 months worth of conversations.
Yeah.
But one thing that really stuck out was just the dedication to professional development and learning about my industry and being a part of the industry. I think that was kind of what gave me the edge, was really just not only wanting to work in events, but caring about what's trending, knowing who the thought leaders are, going to events, just showing that you actually are passionate about the industry that you're in outside of just getting a paycheck. So for me, it wasn't necessarily about just being able to say I work at MLSE. It was really like, I really want to create great experiences at MLSE and focusing more on the work that you're doing and knowing that that can happen at any company. It doesn't have to be at a specific place, but focusing on what your goal is and what your actual purpose within your industry is, like what impact you want to make.
Okay, and what's like the major differences when it comes to, you know, you're entrepreneur, you're running your own events. I'm sure you're doing 10 different things. You're missing things, you're forgetting things, you need support from a bunch of people, versus now being with like MLSE, right? Being a part of like a corporate infrastructure, larger events, I'm assuming, right?
Much larger. Yeah, it's definitely sharpening my skills. I'll say that.
So lots of exposure to larger size events, but also being a part of a team, right? So now you're like in a different work environment. So what are some of the learnings and changes that you've had to make?
I think I draw a lot from my beginnings, which is beneficial coming from leadership and team building. But funny enough, I didn't realize 4 years being an entrepreneur, like you get so used to working a certain way.
Right.
You're used to just doing everything on your own and you're like, go, 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 go. And now it's like, wait, there's a team. There's people that I can reach out to. And it's something that I want to give a huge shout out to the team that I work with now. It's always that open thing. Like we have this kind of saying is like, just be honest, you know, like let's work honestly. So from the perspective of if you feel overwhelmed, if you need help, if you need assistance, let us know. So in all of my one-on-ones with my manager, it's like, what is going really well? What have you accomplished? What are your plans of things that you want to accomplish? But also like, what are challenges? What are things that need to be maybe brought up higher up? What are things that you might need support in? And where are you struggling? And I don't think we talk enough about those pieces, but that kind of helped in my transition to know that I'm coming into a new environment. I'm transitioning from doing everything on my own and doing my everything a certain way, loving having like the structure, working on a larger team and having more resources. But also there was a transition mentally to be like, I can actually like say when I need help. And there's people there that can help to take things off my plate if I need things taken off my plate. So that's like definitely a blessing and something that I'm really enjoying right now, but it took me some time to get used to and like trust that I can be honest about that.
Have you experienced that prior to MLSE as well? So like I want to talk about just like the whole, just like taboo subjects, being vulnerable, being able to, as a business owner or as just a person, you know, that's trying to make it to the next level or whatever you're trying to do, or just trying to make it through. What are some of your breakthroughs when it comes to like stress or pressure and a lot of the things that we don't talk about?
Well, it's great because the event industry is like one of the top stressful jobs in the world. Like I think we're on the same list as firefighters because we're putting out fires all the time.
Yeah, for real.
So it's a very stressful,
especially now.
With all of the uncertainty, but it's stressful. But what I would say, I don't know. I feel like you kind of stumped me with the question.
Okay, so what are some of the conversations you're having now that you wouldn't have 3-4 years ago?
Oh yeah, just being really honest about the importance of pausing. Like we had a whole like 2-hour live about this. Shout out to Shirley from Black Canadian Creators.
You could do a lot of shout outs if you get started.
So let me not start too tough, but yeah. So like, just really being honest about the fact that as entrepreneurs, as professionals, there's always that feeling of go, go, go. There's always a susceptibility to burning out. The first time I burned out, I was in my last year of university and I was in a McDonald's and had a panic attack. I then had this fear of like burning out, and anxiety and all of these things became a part of my life, and it's something that I still navigate through now. And people are like, so then why are you in events when you have all of these things? But with that, I think it taught me the importance of boundaries and how to say no, because I found that growing up, I was a people pleaser. I'm a recovering people pleaser. But it's two edges to the sword. It's really great in the event industry to want to please people because you can execute on what your clients want. But at the same time, being able to do that within boundaries so you're not like dying on the other side mentally. So I think one thing when you think about your career, whether it's at professionally or if you decide that you want to be an entrepreneur, is really knowing what your own boundaries are and finding ways that you can properly execute it. Because it's one thing to know your boundary, but if you don't advocate for yourself or you don't have that confidence to communicate that to other people, regardless of if they like it or not, that's where I see a lot of people kind of going through the intense stress and the panic attacks and anxiety and maybe not being able to perform or be productive or show up as they would want to show up in their work. A lot of it comes from that transparency and having those boundaries. So just start practicing being honest with how you're feeling.
I feel like, you know, you said two key things: is honest with yourself, right? Because I feel like that's the breaking point where you're like, yo, this is just not me. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yep.
And then being able to communicate that and stick to those boundaries externally.
Yep. Self-awareness is huge. So.
Okay. Sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Self-awareness is huge. And I think a lot of us, when we think about loneliness and, you know, wanting to fit in and whatnot, a lot of times we're focused on the outside, like outside people. I want to like get to know this person and build relationships and network and everything. But I don't think enough of us are spending enough time getting to know ourselves. It's like, because once you get to know yourself really, really well, then you'll know going into these situations, going into those interviews, applying for those jobs, you'll know yourself enough to know that, you know, maybe you apply for a job and it sounds amazing, but you get to the interview and you're like, nah, that's not me. But you only know that if you know yourself.
Right.
And then also, when you get to that role and you just figure out this is actually not for me, giving yourself the agency to be able to to walk away regardless and really prioritize your happiness and what your actual goals are in your professional development is more important than how anyone's going to feel. Because at the end of the day, if you leave today, they're going to find someone.
Right.
So just being really in tune with what your purpose is, how you want to make impact in your industry, in your community, and all the work that you're doing, and just being really dedicated to that and letting that be your compass to guide you on what projects you say yes to, what jobs you apply to, what businesses and organizations you're a part of, and what they stand for.
So do you find yourself saying no to a lot more projects and opportunities?
No's my favorite word of 2022.
Yeah?
And just really knowing how where I'm at, so especially showing up. Like when you think about,
Right.
you know, even us getting here on this podcast, I was like, yo, I'm tired this week, and I think I just need to be in my bed. And being able to do that and advocate for yourself in that way means that now that we're having this conversation, I'm showing up at 100%. Right?
Yeah. No, that's cool. And okay, so you talked about burnout, you talked about pausing. I know you got a dope event coming up, right? Shout out to Revive.
Yeah. Shout out to Revive.
But yeah, talk about the event a little bit. And I know it centers around taking a break and let's talk about that.
So we're gonna have a candid conversation about hustle versus holistic.
Okay.
So in the entrepreneur world, in the wellness industry, the fitness industry, it's promoted and glorified to just go, hustle, push yourself past the limit, just anything to do to win.
Right.
But I think in some ways it's great to have that drive. But what I've been seeing across industries and within my own community and other community builders that I know, we have candid conversations about this too with our own groups, is there was like a collective burnout that happened. I don't know if you noticed it, but there was like a period where everyone was like, go, hard, podcast, everything, content, lives. There was like all of this, and then it just kind of went silent. And then just checking in with people is like, yo, I burnt out. Like I had to take a break. And it's when we think about sustainability, whether it's in work, entrepreneur, and business, I think we really have to have that conversation about the importance of having a more holistic way of doing work, of doing business. And I don't want to use the word balance because I don't think balance is like possible. I think it's ebbs and flows. Like you're going to have times when you really want to be productive. You're really working hard. You're going to have times that you really need to rest. But it goes back to the self-awareness thing. Knowing what your ebbs and flows are really important. And how can we make that more normalized within our industries and our conversations in our communities, where if I say to you, yo, Kareem, like I'm tired, I can't make it, you're not going to be bad mind and be like, yo, like I'm mad at me. Like creating an environment where we can have more compassion and understanding of where people are at, and creating that space where people can just be honest and transparent, because I think we need more of that in order for success to happen. Not everybody's at the same level where I can be going when you're going. But if I'm honest to you about when I need that rest, that's where I can pass the baton and where we get the help. And I think a lot of us are afraid of that passing of the baton. So it's less of a 100-meter sprint, but like the 4x4 where like there's other people in your community that you can pass the baton over to. But I will only know that you're passing that on, that you need that help, if you're honest about where you're at.
Facts. All right. So when's the event?
March 26th. So it's about 4 weeks from now. So this is the promotion period.
So it's getting hot.
So it's going to be a panel. We're going to have individuals from the personal development space. Shout out to Reggie, who I met through you, Kareem.
Shout out to Reggie.
We'll have Garcia, who's more in like the mindset space. So really like finding ways to kind of keep ourselves calm and really mastering our minds. And then holistic nutrition. So like thinking about like, what are you actually putting into your body? And, you know, not putting garbage in your body.
Right.
But like just thinking about all the ways that we need to have these conversations about and what kind of helps us be successful. So the things we put in our body, the things that we do with our body, personal development, and our mind, I think are all of the ways that get impacted when we start work, when we're in entrepreneurship. So how to have a conversation with all of those key players and conversations at the same table, and hopefully collectively co-create some solutions that we can kind of be better versions of ourselves and do better work.
Okay. No, that's good. So I feel like we're approaching our top tech recommendations tech effect recommendations part. But yeah, just honored to see your growth, and I'm really excited to see what this year brings for you.
Yeah.
I stay close and connected to you.
No, it's exciting.
But yeah, no, lots of cool conversation. But yeah, let's just break down some of your favorites. Right. So what's your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes.
Okay.
I read that in the beginning of my journey, and it really pushed me to get uncomfortable with yeses. Caveat to that, maybe I was saying too many yeses in my first year. Right. So I learned how to say no and like kind of how to navigate that. But I think that main takeaway from that book was the importance of saying yes even when you don't feel ready, saying yes when you don't feel like you necessarily fit in or you belong in a space. But if you get the opportunity, if someone puts you in a position to say yes, it's because you've done something that they see in you that you may not see in yourself. So that really helped me believe in myself and really insert myself in different areas and be open and honest and kind of build my personal brand. That led to more opportunities, is saying yes to myself and saying yes to opportunities that came my way. Nice. So I definitely recommend that book.
Okay. And then so usually we do top app, but I'm thinking virtual event platform. What's your...
Listen, these people aren't paying me, Kareem, to shout them out.
Okay, what's your...
Yo, hop in, sign a check.
Is that your favorite one?
I think right now, yeah.
Okay. And top podcast.
Right now, I'm really enjoying Lovers and Friends by Sham Booty. She's from Toronto.
Yeah, I know
her.
her.
Yeah. I'm really loving Lovers and Friends. And Jay Shetty. I'm listening to Jay's podcast right now. Very insightful and learning a lot about personal development, health. And Dr. Nina, she's a psychologist and she has a huge YouTube following, so definitely check her out. Okay. But she focuses a lot on personal development and career building and just being better mentally and lifestyle development. So I would say those ones. I'm really into like more personal development stuff and like relationship stuff, but I would say those would be my top 3. So you should definitely check them out.
Cool. What else? Favorite place to travel?
My knee-jerk reaction is Jamaica because I miss it. Right. But I really enjoyed New Orleans.
Okay.
And I really want to go to Greece.
Yeah. I haven't been to either.
New Orleans has really great food, even though I can't eat most of it, but it's delicious. Like the culture is so rich there. Really big on music and jazz and everything there. So if you ever thinking of a place, go during Essence Festival, because that is an experience that I think every Black person needs to experience, is going to New Orleans during Essence Fest and just Black excellence.
Nice. All right, you mentioned food.
Yeah.
Favorite?
Has to be Mexican. I could probably eat burrito tacos every day.
Okay, sick. All right, and then last one, word of advice. I know you have your mantra.
Yeah.
But yeah, just make me word of advice for somebody that's like confused in their career. Like they don't know if they're making the right decision. They don't know if they're on the right path, but
I would say just start tasting. Like if you're unsure of what the next step is, just start trying things. Give yourself the space to just try something new and go for it. Just shoot your shot. The worst that can happen is you get a no, or you get left on red, but did you die? No.
Right.
Yeah. Shoot your shot. So yeah, I would say if you're in a space where you feel confused about what the next step was, I've definitely been there. So feel free to reach out at any time. But I think it just comes to looking inwards and just having the courage to just go for it in whatever way that means for you.
All right, y'all. There you have it. Karlena Waugh, MLSE event coordinator, founder of the Biz Mixer, community builder, event curator, just like overall amazing contact to have, networker, and relationship builder. So thanks for coming through. Appreciate having you. A lot of keys dropped. And yeah, that's it, y'all. Another episode of Career Currency. unlocking your potential, increasing your professional value. So how you can, some of the skills you need to build resilience in your career and make decisions. Also, a lot of keys in terms of how to set up an event and have a successful event. Don't forget about the 5 senses. And then just like overall, how to use your skills as an entrepreneur or any situation to transition into different situations. So, I definitely have to have you back again. We got to talk again. But thank you so much for coming through. And I look forward to seeing what you do this year and into your future.
Yeah, it was cool being on the other side of the table. I remember the last time I was interviewing you and now you're interviewing me. So thank you for having me.
No, for sure. We got to do it again. Thanks for coming through.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right.
You're tuned in to Career Currency with Kareem Perez, a podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. Here's your host, Kareem Perez.